Well, hello, writers. Welcome to episode number 464 of Ink in Your Veins. I'm Rachael Herron, and I'm so excited today to be talking with my friend Natasha Daniels. You are going to love this interview, this podcast with her about her book that just is coming out today as this hits the air. It is called Out of My Shell, and it's about social anxiety and OCD, and it's a memoir, and it's beautiful. And you'll love this interview. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome and what's an expiration date on your daily writing. An idea, a concept that kind of thrilled me a lot. So that is coming up. Please stay tuned. What has been going on around here? Woo-wee. Okay, business wise, writing wise, I have been revising the fix. Oh, I finished the copy edits on Seven Miracles, so that is off my desk and away to my editor, and had a slight heart attack when I sent it to her and it came out as like just garbled info. Can you imagine spending a few weeks on doing copy edits and then nothing goes through? And I struggled with it for a few minutes. I still don't know what was wrong, but it eventually went. So that is really the last big time I will touch Seven Miracles. Thank you, Jesus. I'm done. I'm done. But it still made me cry in the end. So that was a pleasant surprise. I will see it again for page proofs, which is the very last time you can change anything. But honestly, I rarely change anything in page proofs because if you change a lot, it can actually be expensive. They will charge you if you want to change many words in page proofs because it is just a pain in their ass. So I don't blame them. Usually I just skim the proofers' proofing marks and accept them. But that'll be the last time I see it. I think I mentioned last week I've seen my cover. It's fantastic. I love it. It comes out next August, so about a year from now. Oh, publishing. What else? I've been working on my memoir revisions, and I did want to share that a friend of mine who has been in my classes and I've gotten to know quite well, um, uh, Erica. I'll just show you the first name because I don't want to go too much, but Erica just got an agent, and this just I feel like I'm in an agenting period with the people, the writers that I've been working with. The ones who are looking for agents are finding agents, and that makes me so happy and excited for them. And Erica, I just wanted to say on the air how proud I am of you for all of this work that you've done. Ooh, I'm like clutching my belly because I'm so happy. And then I'm also really happy about something personal that happened this weekend. I went away for my writer's retreat. I went to spend, it was 3 nights plus a fourth night. I went and saw my sister for one night, and then I went up for 3 nights to a little town called Wanganui and got a place right on the river. And I had told you last week I had gone with the intention of doing deep work. I had gone with the intention of being alone, having solitude, and doing deep work. And I did both of those things. But I did not do deep work that I saw coming. The deep work that I did is a brand new book which landed on me bodily, physically. I had no idea that a novel was coming. I have not been interested in writing a novel. You know that. I love my nonfiction. I love my memoir. And I was walking down a street and I saw this mural of a woman, big, huge mural, took up the whole side of the building in old downtown Wanganui, which was first built up by colonialists, built up in the mid 40s to the 1860s. And this mural was of this woman at a board. I couldn't tell if she was drawing or writing or weaving. It was actually hard to tell. So I took a picture of it and then I went back to the Airbnb and I Googled the artist whose name was on it, and it came up that it was a woman named Edith Collier. And Edith Collier, turns out, was the first modern artist, the first New Zealander modern artist in the world. And she's almost totally unknown. But she was doing modern art before anyone else was. And she has such an interesting life in which she painted a lot and was not taken seriously. And in fact, her father found a bunch of her nudes and burned them because there was a bit of a moral panic going on around this time in Wanganui around 1922, 1923, well, 1920. Because there had been, number one, it was just the time for moral panic in Western civilizations. This is when prohibition is coming in. This is when people are just running scared, and New Zealand was a little bit behind the times this way. And in 1920, in this town, the mayor, Charles Mackey, had attempted to kill, I'm finding all of this out, had attempted to shoot, he did shoot uh, a man who was going to expose the mayor, Charles Mackey, for homosexuality. He didn't kill the guy. Charles went to prison for attempted murder, but he was ousted from society because he was a homosexual. Like they struck his name from everything that his name could be struck from. They struck his name from this art gallery that he helped found. He was the top, he was the first person, the Honorable Charles Mackey, sandblasted off. He was erased from the annals of time, really, because he was gay, and we didn't talk about that kind of thing. Turns out he was framed. He was framed. They want, I believe, there's not actual hard proof of this, but I have read everything. I basically, y'all, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because the whole story will be in the book. But I spent, I don't know, 36 hours of this 3-day trip reading and studying and going down research rabbit holes. I could tell you everything about Wanganui from 1913 to 1929 or so. And Edith, due to some facts about her life, I also believe was queer, although there is absolutely no substantive proof that she ever had any kind of long-term intimate relationship with anyone, male or female. But I believe she was queer. Charles was queer, and I want to write about them. I want to write about these historical figures, and I want to have a modern, contemporary main character who is also queer in this small town. I don't know what she's going to be doing. I don't know how this is all going to stitch together. It makes me wildly uncomfortable to be, I don't feel uncomfortable writing about Charles because he did admit to being gay, but Edith never did. So is it okay morally for me to do this? I don't know. Her living family is still around, although very, very removed. She didn't have kids, but her trust still manages all of her paintings. Her paintings are incredible. I have joined as a patron the gallery that has all her work now, the gallery that Charles Mackey built. And his name has been put back on in the 70s and 80s. Pride movement said, hey, Charles he was struck off for being gay. Put him back on. So they did. And anyway, I don't know what the story is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a ghost story. It's going to be a queer love story for all three of them. And I'm going to give them all not happy endings because Charles and it can be argued that Charles did not have a happy ending. He was killed in Berlin by the cops. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time during the Blut Mai protest in 1929. And Edith died alone. Or did she have a girlfriend living very close by who died 2 years later when they were in their almost in their 80s? I want to write about all of it. And listen to my voice. I can't even stand it. I'm so excited. I will stop talking about this now, but I will not stop talking about it probably for a long time because I haven't been this excited or this passionate about a concept in a long time. All I am doing is reading about this and researching. And I am not a research person. I have never wanted to write about history. I've never wanted to write in a historical tone, in a historical voice. Again, I'm made very nervous by this, but people have done it. You know, there was the Oliver Wilde novel that was ostensibly, Oscar. Did I say Oliver? Oscar Wilde's autobiography that was a novel that somebody made up about Oscar Wilde. And Michael Cunningham writes in Virginia Woolf's voice in The Hours. It's a thing that's done. I don't know. I'm just thinking a lot about it. Anyway, I'm very excited. And every time I think about it, it makes my brain do this. It makes my brain go in really, really happy laps around the track and back. I'm just buzzing. And I still have to get my own work done on the book I'm working on and teaching and everything, but it's filling in early mornings. It's filling in nights right now. It has been fantastic. Anyway, may you all feel some of that passion this week for your writing because I have plenty of it to go around. Speaking of passion, let's go into this interview with Natasha about a book that I am passionate about. Here is Natasha's bio. Natasha Daniels is a child anxiety and OCD therapist who has battled her own anxiety throughout her life. She's the author of Social Skills Activities for Kids, It's Brave to Be Kind, and Anxiety Sucks, a teen survival guide, and How to Parent Your Anxious Toddler, The Grief Rock, and Crushing OCD Workbook for Kids, and her latest, the one we're talking about, Out of My Shell, a memoir about overcoming social anxiety from childhood to adulthood. She's the creator of ATParentingsurvival.com, the host of the highly ranked AT Parenting Survival podcast, and creator of the YouTube channel Ask a Child Therapist. Her work has been featured in various places, including the Huffington Post, Scary Mommy, PsychCentral, the Child Mind Institute, and The Mighty. Please enjoy this wonderful interview with Natasha. I know that you will, and get some of your own writing done. Come tell me about it. And I'm just so glad that you're here. Thank you. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome you to the show. Will you please share your name and pronouns with us?
It's Natasha Daniels and she, her.
Thank you, Natasha. It is a delight to have you on the show. I got to know you through class, right? Did I know you before classes? I
No,
don't
you didn't.
think so. So, and this book was started in the 90 Days to Done, wasn't it? Or had
It
you
was.
already been working? Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was.
So, first of all, congratulations. This book, Out of My Shell, is just coming out today because it's already September 19th in New Zealand. So, congratulations, your book is out, but it won't be out for you until tomorrow. First of all, how are you feeling about the release of this book?
Very naked.
Yeah.
I think
Out of my shell. Yeah.
yes, it's a very raw, weird feeling to think that people will have access to my deepest thoughts, but good.
I I am frequently, sorry, this is not a question we prepared you for, so here we go. But I am frequently asked by people, by students, by other writers, I'm so scared to show myself in front of the world. How do I even prepare for that? And I feel like I never have a good answer because I feel like I used to feel like that and I don't remember what I did to get over it. I probably drank too much, honestly, and now I don't do that. But what are you doing? How do you handle that naked feeling?
I think I'm trying to like pretend that it doesn't happen, pretend that it doesn't exist.
Fair.
Yeah, just compartmentalize it and just be like, not going to worry
Mhm.
about that until I need to, if I need to.
If you need to. I just spoke to somebody on the show who went on a backpacking trip when their book came out. And so out of Wi-Fi and cell range completely. And I just thought that was the smartest thing I'd ever heard.
That is really smart. I wish I had thought of that. Yeah.
I I also wish that for myself. Okay, so this is your newest book, but it is not your first book. Will you please talk about your writing process with us? What does that look like and how has it changed over the years?
Well, it was a completely different process writing memoir because
Mm,
I've written self-help for kids and teens and I've written children's books. I wrote one parent book, but that was a parent self-help book for toddlers.
mhm.
So this was really the first, and that's why I reached out to you. Actually, I had gotten your book on writing memoirs. And then I started to stalk you and listen to your podcast. And then I heard from your podcast, oh, wait a minute, I can actually work with her. And so, because
This is
the
not paid
idea,
promotion, y'all. This
no, this is, I sing your praises everywhere because I was a writer. I don't think I ever identified myself as a writer, but as a therapist, I could write, the self
Oh,
help.
interesting.
And this was like owning being a writer. And
Hmm.
the process was completely different. And that is why I really needed guidance to what is this process? Um, and so a lot of my processes come from your training of how to do that. So outline first, um, learning about story structure, which was a totally foreign concept to me.
It is
Getting
a
that
foreign concept.
woodwork.
For people who have written nonfiction before, a lot of them have never heard of story structure, nor did they need to know story structure if you're writing something like prescriptive nonfiction or anything in that category. But memoir, and it's so interesting that you say that too, because non-writers can absolutely write nonfiction. They can be
Right.
good enough writers as a human being to write nonfiction, but memoirists are writers, period. In their soul, that's what they are. So you were really embracing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And enjoying it because that was a totally different side of my brain. It was this creative
Mm.
side that I had never tapped into before. So I really enjoyed the process and it was a different kind of writing.
And where did you get it done? You were mostly at the house. Are you on your computer? Do you go out of the house? What goes on for you?
All on my iPad. I'm a total iPad
All
girl.
on your iPad. I do not hear that
Everything's on
often.
my
Do you have a
iPad.
little like a remote keyboard kind of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I've got one of those, magnetic things, and so it looks like a little laptop, but
Yeah.
um, in my chair in my living room, and sometimes out by my pool, and that was the extent of it.
Nice, nice. I did use an iPad for a while for writing for maybe like a year or so, just because of where I was working at the time. I couldn't bring a laptop into that environment. I wasn't allowed to, but you could bring an iPad for some reason. And I remember how frustrated I would get when I'd go back to the computer because I'd constantly be trying to touch the computer to move things around. It was, I'm sure that you do that if you're sitting at a laptop, your hand would move to move things
Yeah, I guess that's true.
because you just get so used to it. Yeah.
Well, I can touch my iPad.
You could touch the iPad and you get used to that. But if you then go to a laptop,
Oh, well, you know
it,
what? That
yeah.
was confusing to me is because I can touch my laptop too.
Oh, you can. Okay. All right. So you have already dialed that one in.
I have
Now,
to be able to touch the screen. Yeah,
what about revision? Do you do that on an
my
iPad
iPad,
too?
all on my
Holy
iPad.
cow.
But I
And
mean, I
what
do everything on my iPad.
what app are you working in when you are writing on iPad? Pages or
Um, Word,
Word? Okay.
and I
Yeah.
actually used gosh, it's been so long. What is the app that you recommended?
Oh, Scrivener.
Scrivener, yes.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
Scrivener was a real godsend because I was able to I was completely restructuring things. So I was like moving big chunks. And I was so glad that you recommended that because that would have been a nightmare in Word. So it was all in Scrivener. And
Yeah.
then I moved it to Word when it was all polished up and I could then start seeing it as a whole.
Perfect. I'm still so impressed about the iPad. Oh my gosh. So, let's see. I have old questions in front of me for some reason. So I'm going to not ask you old questions that you aren't prepared for. Here's the most recent questions. What is the most exciting thing you've ever realized about your writing process?
I thought it was really exciting to be able to tap into a different type of writing.
Mm.
And that's really what I think I learned from you is this passion of um, to get people to feel it, not just say it. And that was really pivotal for me because even in my profession, like in the mental health world, when people write memoirs, which I've read a lot of mental health memoirs, not all of them read like a story. You know,
Mhm.
they are kind of prescriptive and they're talking to the audience. And I didn't want to write that. I wanted to write almost a fictional, like I wanted it to feel like a book, that it was a
Mhm.
story you're immersing yourself in. And I loved that. I fell in love with that.
And might I say that you did such a beautiful job. Your book is gorgeous, and you know that I loved it. So
Oh,
thank
thanks.
you. Thank you for writing it. I'm just so pleased that you did. Are you continuing to write memoir as you move forward?
Well, everything's been put on pause. I haven't written really since I worked with you last, which was probably 3.5 years ago, maybe
Yeah.
a little bit longer. I've written a couple. I have another children's book coming out next year. I can write those in an hour. Um, I think I'm nervous. I want to see because
Mhm.
there was something very therapeutic and exciting about writing memoir.
Mhm.
And I haven't written at all in that way since this little baby has been birthed.
Mm. I can see a little glimmer of excitement on your face though too, as
It's
the
really
I
tiny.
it's knocking very
Yeah.
quietly out there. So what is the part of writing that you struggle with most?
I would say in the beginning, it was really getting people to feel the story. And so I wrote the outline and then I would you kind of talked about like the clay, like just throw the clay, on the wheel and start to, craft it a little bit. And so I'd write things in the way that I normally would write them, more in my like self-help author way. And then I'd go back and I'd be like, now let's make them feel it. And that
Mhm.
was really foreign to me. I almost had to people watched me as I was writing. I'd be like touching my face or I would make an expression. I'd be like, how does this feel? Um,
Yeah.
Getting those feeling uh thesauruses, to look at
Yeah.
all right, angry, what are some other visceral words I can use? And that really became fun. So it was a challenge. And then I actually think it turned into a strength down the road.
And I'm sure it is a strength that I know for me, it's a strength I use in other parts of my life too, because I am not a good feeler. I've had to learn because I'm a writer how to feel. And then I can get different words and different feelings. I identify feelings now in my own body because I've kind of studied them in a way. Have you ever noticed any of
Yeah.
that? That might just be me, but
Yeah. I do think there's a good crossover of this awareness also as an author to be like, oh, that's interesting. My stomach just went up in that moment. Like, how would I describe that? What would that look like? So it almost makes you more tuned in to your own
yes.
bodily reactions.
Yes. And then we get that really nice moment of observation because if we're observing a feeling, we're not as swept
Yep.
under the waves of it as well,
Yeah.
just,
Definitely
like in
helps to.
meditation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what are you really good at writing wise?
I think I'm good at crafting a story.
Mm.
I think in the past, before I wrote this memoir, I always taught, I'm a therapist and I help parents who are raising kids with anxiety and OCD. And so I've always taught through storytelling. Like that is my style.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was why it was really easy to pivot and write
Mm-hmm.
memoir because I feel like that's what I would do. I would do that in sessions. I do it in my online communities. And so I do feel like my strength is taking something, an experience and then crafting a story around that because and I think you even said this, you can take the most simplistic thing or idea and make it this just really interesting, captivating situation based on how you describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really motivating for me. Is it's not really the story, it's the storytelling that
It
can
is.
make it riveting.
And I think you did such a good job with that. The way you didn't seem scared at all by bringing detail in to show that these were perfectly caught moments of your life that we felt like we were privy to because you gave them the detail, because you made them feel like a scene from a novel, which is what we do in memoir. You allowed us to step in that way, and these things became important. And I just think you did such a good job with
Oh,
doing
I'm
that.
glad. That's the biggest compliment coming from you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so proud of you. Um, for somebody who wants to do a little bit more storytelling, getting those, perhaps details into the books, what might you advise them to do or try?
I think initially just getting the story down because it was
Yeah.
like different parts of my brain were operating and sometimes at different parts of the day. And so get the story down and then don't get stuck on, you know, the grammatics of it or
Mhm.
the semantics or the descriptions and then go back and I mean, you taught me everything I'm saying is like what stuff that you taught me, like doing
Maybe
these
that's why I'm agreeing with you because I forget everything I know anyway. So I'm like,
like
"Ah, that's a great idea,
it's
Natasha."
brilliant. Where does she get these ideas? But I would do passes, everything the way that I write memoir, or I only wrote one memoir, but like the way I would ever write again is pretty much how I was taught by you. I would do passes, and so I would get it on the paper, and then I would do look at grammar pass, and then I'd do like we're going to do a feeling pass, and um, that way you're not so overwhelmed because I
Yes.
felt like they were different parts of your brain that
Yeah.
are working when you're switching gears all the time. It can feel overwhelming.
Especially when we're getting that first draft down and we're trying to, for whatever reason, do everything right in those moments. We're trying to get it right. And we can't get a first draft right. We can only get a first draft down. And
Yep.
that is what you were doing. And I love that. I love that. Thank you for reminding me of that again. What is the kindest thing you've ever done for yourself as a writer?
I think I recognized that I had an expiration date every day and forced
Tell me
myself
more.
to write. If I wrote at night, my brain could not work. And so I started to really pay attention. And I'm pretty sure this is something that you said as well, to be honest. But I started to really tune into like, when is it easy for me to write and when is it a task? And I quickly noticed all things in my life, but I do this well in the morning and I do this well at night. And so I started to craft my day based on what my brain could do. And I could only write in the morning,
Mhm.
which was really annoying because if I missed that window, I had to be kind to myself and be like, nope, nope, you're not going to force yourself to write at night because that's not your strength. You have to wait until
Yes.
tomorrow.
Yes, and but you only knew that because you experimented. I was just sharing that with this current session of classes yesterday is that when I was testing that for myself, I knew that I worked best in the morning and worst at night, and I thought afternoons sucked for me. And then when I tested it, it actually turned out that I wrote better in the afternoon and more
Yeah.
and faster and more easily. And I still don't do that. I still prefer to write in the morning. But now I know if I'm on deadline, afternoon is my friend. My brain does turn on in the afternoon and I can go into that. And night, I don't know her. Like I'm never going to write at night.
Yeah.
Ever. Not even on
No,
deadline. I will just,
no.
that's my past my expiration date. You're right.
I don't
It's
write
not worth
anything
it.
at night. Not
And that
even like
is
little social media copy. No.
exactly, exactly. And that is such a kindness to have experimented and then to know it for yourself. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just love calling it an expiration date too. Can you tell us a specific moment that you knew you had ink in your veins?
Hmm. Well, maybe it'll be tomorrow. I think I still have this imposter syndrome. Even coming on your podcast, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not a writer though. She's going to ask me writing questions.
And I love all of these books that I can list that you have written. And I know you say like, oh, they're easy. They're not easy. People don't even write the smaller children's books. And here you are with this memoir, traditionally published, beautiful memoir, and you're feeling the imposter syndrome. So I absolutely love that. And maybe the ink in your veins is that you're doing it anyway with that
Yeah.
imposter syndrome feeling.
Yeah. And maybe that's always just going to be there because that's just part of the journey.
Hmm. Becca Syme recently blew my mind at the RWNZ conference when she said, um, if you feel imposter syndrome, you can't be an imposter because imposters don't feel imposter
Oh,
syndrome.
I like that. That's nice.
It's good. It blew my
Yeah.
mind. Yes. All right. So, what is the best book that you've read recently and why did you love it?
Mm. I'm still reading it.
Mhm.
Um, The Good Life. Have you read The Good Life?
Why is it so familiar? I forget titles. Who is it by?
And I completely forgot who it's by. I'll
I
have to
can get it
Google
real
that.
quick.
It's a nonfiction book.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Oh, yes. Yes. I was reading about this Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study of Happiness. Actually, I bought it because it was relevant to some research I have been doing and I haven't read it yet. So,
it's so good. I mean, it's not a heavy book to digest. I'm listening to the audio version, but I just think that it really helps anchor you and um it's all about connection. It's ironic actually in juxtaposition to this book, which talks about like really feeling not connected and this and if I wasn't in this healing space, I think the book actually would upset me because it talks about
Mm,
like everything is based on connection and like your health, your longevity, everything's about connection with people in general. And this
mhm.
longitudinal study from Harvard that shows that. And that would have been really depressing for me 4 years ago because I'd be like, I have nobody and I'm not connected and I'm going to die. I'm going to die so soon because according to the research, that's not healthy. Um, but it is uplifting. And I think, that's the hope is that we can connect no matter what we have, whether we have social anxiety or other issues that disconnect us,
Yes.
that there's always hope and there's always connection.
And look at us right now. That is what we are doing. That is, I mean, I believe in all kinds of connection, including those over Zoom are super powerful. I
Yeah.
connect with podcasts that I listen to. That's another form of connection.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the in-person stuff, which I'm always trying to duck and avoid, but I do it because I know how important it is. Exactly. All right. So
Yeah.
while we're talking about um, things like that, can you tell us about your book, please?
Well, it is a memoir, but it's a bit of
Mhm.
a prescriptive memoir. I did, like I
Mhm.
said, I wanted it to read, you know,
Yeah.
like a good story. I wanted anyone to be able to pick it up, even if you don't have social anxiety, and see parts of your life reflected back, because we
Mhm.
all have felt rejected or judgment. Like that's just the human condition. And so um it is a memoir where I go back and forth like from the past and then to the present, and then in between I'm doing actually therapy sessions with younger versions of myself. And throughout the book eventually I get very close to meeting my identical self. I kind of catch up to myself.
Mhm.
And
Which
the
is a
hope is that,
it's a great framing, by the way. I love that framing.
yeah, definitely taught by you.
Oh, I don't remember that at all. So I'm really glad.
Yeah. And when I've read memoir, I like the first of all, I like the going back and forth. I
I
like
do
the
too. Mhm.
juxtaposition of like different scenes. And I think that breaks up the story. But my hope also is that someone can read it And it's not just, oh, that's an interesting story of Natasha Daniels, but that that's me, or I can see me in that. And that's also empowering. Like, what can I do differently? Because ultimately it is a book about self-love, and self-understanding. And I feel like that's just a human thing.
I love that. And I realize now why I clicked with the book so much too, is that like during the pandemic, it was brought home to me that and, also recovering from alcohol abuse addiction. I have always been socially anxious. I've been socially anxious since I was a tiny, tiny babe, and I never knew it. And it's been something that I think a lot of us have found out during the pandemic when we were given a little bit more time to ourselves and thought about what was necessary. So I think this book is coming at such a great time too for people who are exploring this, or like you say, who don't have it and are just interested. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, loneliness is becoming like an
yeah,
epidemic. The UK has actually called it an epidemic and created a department for loneliness.
I've read about that because it is so. It's not like it's not a touchy feely
Yeah.
thing. It is a health crisis. It's an
It is a
actual
health
health crisis.
crisis, which makes sense when you read the other book, The Good Life.
Yeah.
That then you're like, okay. And I did when
Okay.
I was reading your memoir, Unstuck. I was like, oh, Rachel has some social anxiety. I was like, I
I
can't wait to talk to her. I have
I
to
had so
diagnose her.
I had somebody reach out recently and say like, I had no idea you felt that way. I'm like, I know, I do not present that when when I don't have social anxiety, I don't have social anxiety when I'm on a
Yeah.
podcast or when I am
Yeah.
teaching because that is when I am comfortable. But when I go into any other room in the world, I
Yeah.
want to crawl under the floor.
Yes, I could totally
Yeah.
relate to you when I was reading your book. It's like, I get this feeling. And it is. I mean, people with social anxiety or even a tad of social anxiety, they can mask really well. I mean, people think I'm outgoing.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not about social skills. It's about that fear of like rejection and that
Yeah.
overwhelm too, of being in
Yes.
that overwhelming situation.
Yes, I mask so well. I thought that I was an extrovert until I quit drinking. And then I realized, oh, that's why I had always used some kind of substance to prop me up because I am not. I am
Yeah.
not that. I wouldn't have believed it. So, oh, and so
Yeah.
everybody please go get this book. It is called Out of My Shell. By the time this episode airs, it will be available everywhere. Where can we find you online?
Well, if you're a parent, you can find me at
Yes.
atparentingsurvival.com. If you have a child with anxiety or OCD, lots of stuff for parents. I do have a website, socialanxietyreality.com, for this book. I did create an Instagram account, Social Anxiety Reality, where it's almost like a little real daily real confessional. Um,
I can't wait
it's
to
just a,
follow it.
yeah, it's squeamish. I try not to watch it because it really literally is my little confessional. And then I
I will.
forget that people actually watch these. So, yeah,
I yes, I have used my social media a little bit for that in the past, and then, um, a year or 3 years later, you'll get suggested, your photos will pop and say, "A year ago today," and you'll see yourself talking. You're like, "No, no, 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 no. I am not going to listen to that."
yeah, there's got to be a way
Is
to shut that off. Yeah.
is there anything there should be. Is there anything that I have forgotten to ask that you would like to tell us about?
No, but I do want to thank you because like none of this would be possible if you didn't really teach me to believe in writing and give me that hope and break it down in really simple steps. And then even having the crisis, where my husband passed away and having to take a huge break and then come back, and just you being so open to bringing me back into the fold, even though I couldn't really manage it and then I had to leave again. So I just wanted to take that time to thank you.
You are very, very welcome. I have believed in you since the very first moment that I met you, and I am just so proud of you and proud of this book, and you've done an amazing job. I hope that your launch day is calm and gentle and joyous and not stressful. That's my wish.
I think it will be because I just won't be paying attention to anything.
Good, 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 good. Thank you, Natasha, so much.
Yeah, thank you.